Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of The Snake Pit. I'm your host, Son of Bat, and tonight I'll be talking about one of my favorite movies of all time. Now, I know some of you in real life who know me are probably thinking, yeah, that's a list that's constantly changing and rotating. For straight up horror movies, you're right. That is a list that's constantly changing and updating and rotating and whatever. So I guess I got to break it down and be a little bit more specific here. This is one of my favorite non-horror movies of all time. A movie that's easily in my top 10 ranking. I don't know exactly where, but it's up there. A movie I've seen a countless number of times, going all the way back to middle school, coming all the way to now. And a movie that every time I see it, I find something new or interesting about it. Of course, I'm talking about Donnie Darko. Released in 2001, this movie was super divisive and still to this day is super divisive. You have people who either love it or people who straight up hate it. I mean, I've rarely ever come across someone who's right in the middle who's like, yeah, it was okay. It's like either they absolutely love it or totally fucking hate it. Like there's no middle ground. And I think the reason why a lot of people don't like this movie, well, I think it's twofold. One of the reasons why is because it's so confusing and ambiguous, especially the theatrical cut of the movie, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, I think some ambiguous movies are interesting. The theatrical cut to this movie is actually really interesting too. It took me a few years to realize that. But I think the other reason why is the presumed pretentiousness that comes with this movie. A lot of people assume that this is a pretentious movie, or they walk away thinking it's a pretentious movie, especially I guess after the director's cut. But also by extension, people think the fan base or the hardcore fan base to this movie is pretentious. And I mean, to a degree, they're right. I think with any niche thing like a movie or a subgenre or category, whatever you want to call it, or anything that there's a fan base, there's going to be a really unbearable subsect in that group. Donnie Darko is no different. The super fans to this movie are very fucking annoying and borderline schizophrenic to a degree. I mean, some of it's interesting, but the mass majority of it is god awful. It's kind of like the Szechuan sauce freaks from fucking Rick and Morty. It's that level of unbearable. But still, this is one of my favorite movies. Am I one of those pretentious freaks? I mean, I don't think so. I think I'm a pretty regular fucking retarded guy. But I still enjoy this movie. I still think it's really good. It's one of the better science fiction movies. And I kind of cheated. I mean, I said this is one of my favorite non-horror movies. I do have it categorized with my horror movies. But that's because, like I mentioned in a previous video, horror is a genre that has a schizophrenic spider web of subgenres, kind of like heavy metal. And within that schizophrenic spider web, I've kind of broken off and made it even more disjointed and schizophrenic. So this movie, if we're going to get, real specific with it, is with the science fiction horror movies. But within that pocket of science fiction horror movies, I have another subgenre, which I call time travel horror. Now, this encompasses movies like Donnie Darko and its abortion sequel S Darko, which I'm only going to mention now and maybe later for like a brief second. The Butterfly Effect 1, 2, and 3, and The Jacket. All those movies are very dark, very fucked up movies that involve time travel, just like Donnie Darko here. And I think they all kind of fit together. If there's any more out there that I'm missing, please feel free to comment them down below. This is a type of movie or a subgenre I find really interesting because time travel in and of itself is a really good setup for films. I mean, from your fucking Terminators to your hot tub time machines, it can be used in a various array of subgenres, and it works every time, pretty much every time. This movie is no different. I think it's great. I think the fact that it sandwiches so many subgenres is another thing that adds to its uniqueness. I mean, it's part science fiction, part psychological thriller, part coming of age movie, part 80s throwback like an inverted John Hughes movie. It's got all these things going for it, and to a degree horror, because if I look at the back of my PSP UMD for the movie, it says in the tradition of Stir of Echoes and Final Destination, which are they're fucking horror movies. So I guess to a degree this can be vaguely categorized there. So don't rip my fucking dick off in the comments for basically saying it's a horror movie and then not saying it is or whatever. But yeah, very schizophrenic, kind of like the plot of this movie, which we will get into in just a second. Donnie Darko was released in 2001 and is directed by Richard Kelly, written by Richard Kelly, produced by Sean McKitterick, Nancy Joven, I said that wrong, I know I did, and Adam Fields. starring Jake Gyllenhaal, Jenna Malone, Drew Barrymore, Mary McDonnell, Catherine Ross, Patrick Swayze, and Noah Weil. Also, Maggie Gyllenhaal is in this movie. So is the girl from The Ring. She actually plays the youngest sister. And Seth Rogen actually made his feature film debut in this. And funny enough, the first words ever spoken by Seth Rogen on film in his whole career is, quote, "I like your boobs." So, very on brand with Seth Rogen. But yeah, cinematography by Stephen Poster, edited by Sam Bauer and Eric Strand, music by Michael Andrews, production company Flower Films. And side note about Flower Films, that's actually Drew Barrymore's production company, and director Richard Kelly has even gone on record to say if Drew Barrymore didn't financially back this film, it would have most likely ended up on a direct-to-video release, or it would have ended up as a straight-to-cable release through the Starz network. So that's really sick that she got this a wider theatrical release, because all pretentiousness aside, I think this is one of those movies that everyone should see at least once. I mean, it's considered one of the 50 greatest independent films of all time and one of the 500 greatest movies of all time. So there's a reason for it. But anyway, distributed by Newmarket Films and released on January 19th, 2001 for Sundance, and October 26th, 2001 in the United States for the theatrical release. Clocking in at under 2 hours with 113 minutes, but if you watch the director's cut, it is significantly longer, coming in at about 2 hours and 14 minutes. I'll break down some of the differences in the director's cut a little bit later, but made on a budget of $4.5 million and at the box office return of $7.5 million. So I won't say this movie is a box office bomb. It's more of a box office bust in the sense that it made its money back later. I mean, it's a cult film. People love it. I mean, it made its money back, I believe, on the home video market with VHS, DVD, the director's cut, the UMD, Blu-ray, and I believe Arrow, if I'm not mistaken, released a 4K box or like a really special Blu-ray box. So this movie's gotten some serious love in the years since its release back in 2001. It got a not-so-great sequel in 2007 called S. Darko, which... yeah, the less said about that, the better. And in as recently as 2021, Richard Kelly said he's actually working on a new sequel. So, I'm actually kind of amped for that if that is the case, because this is a movie I've always wished got a true sequel. Because I remember when I was really into this movie in like 7th or 8th grade, I instantly got S. Darko and I watched it and I wanted to throw my fucking TV out of the window. Like, it is really fucking bad. He had like no involvement in it, and it shows because the movie's a fucking mess. I mean, I own it because I got it for like a buck at Blockbuster back in the day, but I don't think I've seen it since like maybe 2007, 2009. No, actually it was released in 2009. So yeah, I haven't seen it since about maybe 2009 or 2010. But yeah, terrible fucking movie. But anyway, we're not talking about that shit show. We're going to be talking about the OG. We're talking about Donnie. But anyway, I'm going to give a basic synopsis of the plot here. I don't want to get too into it because, again, this is a movie I think you should kind of go into blind. If you watch the director's cut, there's no chance of going in blind. That movie's going to hold your hand the whole way through. But yeah, go with the theatrical cut because it's very ambiguous and there's multiple ways you can perceive the movie if you watch the original cut, whereas the director's cut, it's going to be very specific. Like, it's going to lead you down one path and there's not going to be really any room for any other interpretation or explanation. I mean, it's still interesting to check out, but I'd say for first run, check out the theatrical cut and go in blind. So in that case, if you're going to do that, stop the video right now because there might be some spoilers coming up inadvertently. But anyway, there was your warning. So essentially the basic plot is in this town called Middlesex, which is essentially anywhere town, USA. There's this kid named Donnie Darko more specifically, and he suffers from sleepwalking and possibly schizophrenia. On one of these specific sleepwalking excursions, he gets guided by this mysterious fucking rabbit, this freaky looking motherfucker who goes by the name of Frank, and he tells Donnie that in 28 days, 6 hours, 42 minutes, and 12 seconds that the entire world as he knows it is going to end. This sets off a chain of events that spiral into all sorts of craziness. You have, like fucking new age weirdos coming to the school trying to peddle an agenda, played by Patrick Swayze and by the fucking gym teacher. I can't remember her name, but she's also a crazy fucking teacher in Child's Play 2. You got Donnie's potential love interest with the new girl who is also in the witness protection program. You have his like everyday life with his friends and bullies, and then you have this looming doomsday rabbit constantly pushing him towards his mission to at first sabotage and subvert everything, but it's all for the greater good. Yeah, it's probably a really shit explanation, but yeah, like that's pretty much the basics of it. It's like, yeah, this psychological thriller about a kid who may or may not have time travel powers. He may totally be a schizo. It may actually be happening. Who knows? Now, where the director's cut differs with this movie is the director's cut straight up tells you it is 100% a time travel movie. He's not schizophrenic. All this is actually happening. And I'm going to break that down in as simple as a way as I can. I'm probably going to fuck it up and have the Donnie Darko fanboys try to fucking tear me apart. But fuck them. Here we go. Essentially, what happens is when Donnie leaves his room to go follow Frank, he destroys his own destiny in a way because he's supposed to be killed in a jet engine crash that goes through his roof. Now, by him not dying in this jet engine crash, it creates a split in time, creating a parallel or a tangent universe where everything is going as is, but in these 28 days, the whole world is going to essentially collapse on itself, and everyone is going to just get destroyed, essentially. Very sciencey shit that I can't really explain because I am high as fuck right now. But yeah, so Donnie basically pieces together that he has to go back in time with a vessel right to the moment before the jet engine crashes and accept his fate and basically just eat the fucking engine. Now, this opens the door to a lot of Christ allegories, a lot of, superhero shit like the savior complex, because essentially it's this one kid who has to save the entire world through an act of selflessness. It's really deep and really interesting. I highly recommend, if you're a fan of the movie and you've only ever seen the theatrical cut, to check out the director's cut because it gets more in depth with Roberta Sparrow's book. There's some more added scenes in there too. And, this has been considered one of the most divisive or one of the worst director's cuts ever made, up there with fucking The Warriors from 2005. Now, Richard Kelly even has gone on record to say he doesn't consider this a director's cut. He thinks of it more of a special edition of sorts. And a lot of people seem to hate it because of how blunt it is with its explanation. Now, I fucked up. The first time I ever saw this movie, it was the director's cut. I think we rented it from Queen Video, and the only version they had was the director's cut, and we didn't even know there'd be a difference. In fact, I think the way I found out about this movie was through McFarlane's Movie Maniacs figures, which I'm looking at it right now, the Frank the Rabbit one. And I think in my mind, I watched a CSI episode where there's a guy in a creepy rabbit costume. And then I put that together with the McFarlane rabbit, and I thought both of those must have been the same thing, or the CSI episode was referencing this movie. So I looked out for this movie, and then one day at Blockbuster, I see the poster with the fucking rabbit head on it, and I'm like, that's the movie, that's the movie. Now, there was 2 video stores in my area, so we didn't go to Blockbuster for a lot of rentals because as much as I love the nostalgia of Blockbuster, they were pretty shitty with a lot of things. So we went to this other place, the local store called Queen Video. Yada, 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 rented the director's cut, watched it, thought it was fucking awesome. And then when it came around that I went to go buy my own copy, I think I got it at Rogers or HMV or Future Shop or some shit. We bought the copy and I bring it home and I watch it, and the whole time I'm getting this weird feeling like there's scenes missing here. The movie feels significantly shorter, and on top of that, a lot of songs have been switched around and rearranged. The most prominent example is The Killing Moon by Echo and the Bunnymen. On the director's cut, it's replaced by I can't remember the name, but it's by INXS. So yeah, you got a few musical switches here and there which kind of confuse you, especially like if you see one version over the other. You get some extended scenes that are actually also found on the standard cut, but I remember watching it and being like totally confused. Like maybe I'm schizophrenic and I thought of these scenes, but I've always been partial to the director's cut because this is a movie I do enjoy, and to me, it's not like there was some shitty transitions. I mean, there's a couple where you see the pages from the philosophy of time travel, but those, I mean, were kind of made when the movie was being made, so it kind of fits, like it flows better. Kind of like how when you watch Creepshow, the comic book panels fit with the live action scenes because it was all done around the same time. Whereas with the fucking Warriors DVD, all of that, those comic transitions look like they're made in MS Paint, and it's super fucking distracting. So me personally, I never really saw the negatives with the director's cut. I mean, yeah, sure, it is really heavy-handed in its explanation and it's less ambiguous and kind of treats you like an idiot, but to me, I always looked at it, hey, I'm getting more movie out of it, so there's nothing wrong with that. And I think deep down, that's why I've always been amped for a potential sequel if they ever do it properly. So yeah, director's cut, theatrical cut, there's two versions of the movie, and like I was saying, they're actually very different in the sense that, like, yeah, there's additional scenes, music is rearranged, but it also changes the pacing of the movie, which kind of also affects the tone. But yeah, I mean, I have no problem with it. I'm actually watched the director's cut for this review. So like I was saying, if you haven't seen this movie, go for the theatrical. If you have seen it a bunch of times and you never seen the director's cut, check it out because it really isn't the worst thing out there. I mean, the Warriors one is probably the worst one I've seen so far. So by comparison, the Donnie Darko one is like fucking Citizen Kane or whatever fucking great movies film fucking freaks go off about. But yeah, still really good. And the interesting thing too is this movie came out in '01 and there's a lot of shit about plane crashes and stuff in it, so the marketing had to get severely altered. And this kind of leads into what I was saying earlier in the video about how people have many explanations as to where this movie goes and what it's actually about. You can actually, one of the more entertaining ones is how this movie is supposed to be a piece of predictive programming about fucking 9/11. Pretty interesting rabbit hole to go down. Is it true? It's pretty fucking schizo, almost as schizo as our boy Donnie here. The theatrical cut, basically what's cool about it is you can go several ways with it. You can either look at it like it's a time travel movie, or you can look at it like this is a seriously disturbed kid who had a daylight hallucination, as his therapist mentions, and everything we saw was a hallucination. That's why when it cuts back to right before he dies, he's laughing his ass off because he's finally realizing it. It can be interpreted as a Christ metaphor or a superhero movie based off the fact that Donnie has certain powers, like he can see through time, he can see where people are going to go through those liquid orb things in his chest, which is, I guess, another form of time travel. Pyrokinesis is mentioned, same with telekinesis, because the statue of the mongrel gets his fucking fire axe put through the head, and there's no way, anyone, even like, I don't even think the world's strongest man could put metal into metal like that. The way the plane engine gets ripped out of the fucking sky, I mean, it's heavily implied that it was through telekinesis and that Donnie can manipulate like items like that no human can. So that, and also the way that the whole school was flooded and everything, and the way the house burns down, these all tie into it. Like the fire looks like it's being controlled if you watch the movie. It's pretty fucking cool. Great scene. I mean, that bitch Jim Cunningham totally fucking deserved what he got. Another interesting thing that makes rewatchability a must with this movie is like little things like the first time Donnie and Gretchen are walking back from school, he casually mentions that when he was younger he tried to burn down a house. This just so happens to be mentioned right in front of Jim Cunningham's house, which later gets burned down, as we all know. This can also be seen as a parallel to Graham Greene's The Destructors, which is a book being read in Donnie's class. I mean, the house burning down along with the school being flooded go like right there with the fucking book. And another book that gets paralleled, or is slightly paralleled I should say, is Watership Down, which is another literary classic that is extremely fucked up, but a really good read. You got to check that one out. Also, the movie, the cartoon, is really fucked up. Some parallels there. Of course, also the inspiration for Frank came from Watership Down, the animated movie, of course, which I think is really cool. So if you watch the director's cut, you'll get some scenes in the classroom which, like the Graham Greene scenes, these ones are about Watership Down. Drew Barrymore's character, the English teacher, even mentions to Donnie that they picked it and that perhaps he and Frank can both read it, kind of alluding to his possible schizophrenia and shit, because in another deleted scene he reads a poem about Frank the rabbit and everyone laughs at him. So yeah, check out that fucking director's cut. There's some pretty good deleted scenes in there. There's a nice little scene where you get Evil Dead in the theater, which Sam Raimi was nice enough to let Richard Kelly use for free. Another great movie, by the way. But yeah, there's a lot of cool shit. I mean, there's also interesting stuff that you notice like upon rewatching it. Like a couple that got me is like, I remember for the longest time I could never piece together who the fat guy in the jumpsuit smoking cigarettes were. He's one of the TSA flight fucking guys keeping an eye on Donnie and his family, which is pretty cool. I always knew there was something to it. Like, I mean, at some point I thought that was Gretchen's fucking stepfather, the one that tried to kill her and the mom, but nah, he would have, I don't know, like it never fit for that, but I always kind of thought it was, but no, he's a TSA agent. Fucking kind of rambling here. I'm fucking stoned to the gills, boys. But yeah, there's another one too, like in the beginning of the movie, I guess if you're watching the theatrical cut when Killing Moon's playing, Donnie rides his bike, and I think the car's a Trans Am goes by. It's fucking Frank's car, and the word killing comes up right when they pass each other. So you actually see Frank early on in the movie. There's a lot of little things like that that you can catch on review. It's really fucking sick. Makes rewatching this movie totally fucking worth it, in my opinion. Oh, and I almost forgot, for all my music fans out there, I mentioned earlier this movie has a stacked fucking soundtrack, and it really does. It's got a lot of great 80s new wave songs on here. You got songs by NXS, Tears for Fears, The Church, Duran Duran, Oingo Boingo, Joy Division, and Echo and the Bunnymen. And for all my metalheads out there, we get a surprise song that plays at the party scene. If you got really good ears, you can hear it. It's Proud to Be Loud by Pantera. But it isn't the Pantera we all know. This is the hair metal version of Pantera, their early incarnation that we refer to as Gay Pantera. But still cool to see that they got a song in the movie. I mean, pretty badass. But yeah, nice soundtrack. I've been fucking droning on and on and on about this. But yeah, clearly you can see I really do like this movie. I think there's a lot to be gained from it. Is it like this super deep fucking thing that every art student makes it out to be? No, it's just a really fucking good movie. It's an interesting sci-fi movie. It's a good teen movie. It's got fucking amazing tracks in it. Got some really good actors. It's just a good movie. I mean, like nothing more, nothing less. Like I think people who dive too far into it are a little fucking whacked, but yeah, don't let that deter you. This is a fucking solid movie. If I were to rate this on a scale out of 10, I mean, you could probably assume you already know where I'm going to go. I'm going to give this a 10 out of 10. It actually took me a few years to come around and reevaluate the theatrical cut. For the longest time, I thought the director's cut was superior. While it does hold a special place in my heart as that is the first version I've ever seen, I do see why the theatrical version is the preferred. It's a more streamlined, compact movie. It's a little creepier in some aspects. It's more interesting and thought-provoking in that way. So I guess the director's cut, I'd have to knock it down to about a 9 or an 8.5. Certainly not as bad as most people make it out to be, like I said. And the theatrical cut, of course, is going to get a 10 out of 10. Amazing movie. You got to check it out. If you have the chance to, do it right now. Fucking get a DVD, get a VHS, get a UMD, get a Blu-ray, get whatever the fuck you can. Stream it, for Christ's sakes. And I never say that. Fucking stream it. Watch this movie. It's cool. One of the best movies of the 2000s. And yeah, that was the Donnie Darko DVD, both versions, 10 and fucking 9 respectively. And as a little bonus here, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to review something else also in the Donnie Darko world. No, it's not going to be S. Darko. If I ever do that review, I'll probably be absolutely shit-faced, and it will be just me yelling about how fucking bad it was, like The Exorcist, Believer, whatever the fuck, Deceiver, fucking Crap Redeemer, whatever the fuck that was. Anyway, point being, we got a little extension here on the review. Today I'm going to be talking about the Donnie Darko UMD released for the Sony PSP. Yes, this is real, and I swear nothing screams 2000s like Donnie Darko on the fucking PSP. Supposedly this is a really rare UMD. I mean, the guy who posted it on the eBay listing had it rare in all caps, which I haven't really seen for a lot of them. However, I do know there are some really rare UMDs on the market, like fucking American Psycho is one of them, and I've seen Scarface actually go for about $2,500, which is fucking insane, because that is a movie you can get for like $4 at any thrift store, or you can watch it for essentially, I guess, free in brackets on Netflix. But yeah, it's going for like $2,000 just because it's on PSP. That's absolutely fucking nuts. I think it's been like that for a few years now. I've gone back here and there to check on it, and no one has ever bought it. But yeah, $20 for this. It's pretty steep considering the DVD, like the standard edition DVD goes for about like $10 or less. So is it an L? I don't really think so. If it is rare, that's cool. Plus, this is one of my favorite movies, so I think that's a fucking steal. But also, the interesting thing about this, I mean, for those of you who are familiar with UMDs, you got to know that they're basically tiny DVDs, so you can only fit so much shit on there. So it's pretty cool that you can fit a pretty much 2-hour movie on there. But usually, they can only fit about a 2-hour movie, and that's about it. It will say play or chapter selection, if that. This one went so far as to add audio commentary with Richard Kelly and Jake Gyllenhaal, deleted and extended scenes with an optional director's commentary, and the Mad World music video by Gary Jules, and it also includes the theatrical trailer to Donnie Darko. So pretty much this is a one-to-one like replica of the original DVD release, which I think is crazy that they managed to fit all that shit on there, because if, again, it is the one-to-one, then they got every deleted and extended scene. That's pretty much everything that's in the director's cut I was talking about. So you got over a 2-hour movie right there, which I think is pretty fucking cool. It also has the alternate ending, which shows Donnie's death. I mean, all the standard versions of the DVD have that, and I think it's even a deleted scene feature on disc 2 of the director's cut. But yeah, the UMD, if you guys want to spend the money, or if you can find it for a cheap price and got a PSP, pick it up, because there's nothing cooler than having a 2000s movie like this on the go to watch on the bus, you know, watch in the car, whatever you're doing. Movies on the go always kick ass. Highly recommend you guys seek this one out if you can find it. But also, again, pick up the standard edition. It's a fairly cheap DVD. And if you can find the director's cut DVD and you're a super fan, pick that up, because not only do you get the extended cut of the movie, but you get a whole nother disc, and I guess half a disc of just special features. I say half because a few of them are, you know, on disc 1, obviously, and then the rest are on disc 2. But a whole lot of shit to be had there. Great movie, great release, fucking both the DVD and the PSP. Love this movie. Hope you guys love this review too. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I know I droned on for a bit, but I'm high as fuck, and if, you know, the Frank doll across from me is right, in 28 days, 6 hours, 42 minutes, and 12 seconds, I'm going to be exactly in the same spot as I am now, just high as a motherfucker doing these reviews for y'all. So we'll see you in the next one, unless a jet engine crashes through my roof. So peace.